Lately, I've been talking about this transit coming up at the end of October, and believe it or not, it is already the end of October. And this is the grand water trine that's happening for most of the end of the month. So, really starting like around the 20th of October until the 29th of October, we're going to have this configuration in the sky between many, many planets. I mentioned it in my new moon in Libra video, I mentioned in my Mercury in Scorpio video, and I talked about how this was going to be a time of emotional integration, a time where things that have been unexamined in our lives will be coming up to the surface because of the preponderance of planets that we have in the sign of Scorpio, which is the sign of death, rebirth, transformation, the unconscious. This is the sign of alchemy. And here with Scorpio and all of these planets in Scorpio and in water, this is true emotional alchemy, being able to take buried emotion and turn it into wisdom. And it's like this shadow work process. We go into the descent, we encounter, and then there is a transmutation and an embodiment and coming up to the surface with what we have discovered. So this time might not be easy, even though we'll talk about the easiness of the trines, but it's rewarding if we choose to see it from that perspective, that this is a time where we are being asked to not force clarity, but allow it. If we desire it to be, this is a time when our psyche can sync up to what our soul already knows. This is actually one of the reasons that I'm doing my Mapping the Shadows workshop with human design and astrology during this time on October 25th. I literally could not have concocted a more perfect sky for this, because on the 23rd, we'll have the sun move into Scorpio. And right now we have Mars and Mercury there as well as Lilith. And I am so excited for this workshop, you guys. I'm going to be going into my framework. In my framework, I have two trinities of houses, the material trinity and the shadow trinity, showing us where shadows show up in our lives, and then finding the root of those shadows, because oftentimes knowing what's happening on the surface can give us a level of clarity, but understanding what's underneath it is what really allows us to transmute it. My workbook is almost 20 pages and growing, so it's going to be very rich and full of meaningful information. I'm not just throwing random things in there that you can come back to again and again. And you don't need to know astrology, you don't need to know human design. It is accessible for every level. Link is in the description. You can also check out more information if that's what you're looking for before you sign up. I totally understand. It is going to be very transformative because the skies are literally asking us to decode what's been hidden. This is like Mercury in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, saying to cut out old emotional patterns that have been keeping us stuck. And then we've got Saturn and Neptune in Pisces dissolving the boundaries and the walls between our consciousness and our unconscious. And what else? Oh, and Jupiter in Cancer coming in to lend a healing hand and let us expand our heart's capacity to hold it all. So I'd love to have you there. Link is in description. So let's pull up the chart of one of the days that this is going to be happening. I picked October 23rd because this is when the sun moves into Scorpio as well. So as you can see, we've got that day, all this stuff in Scorpio. And then we've got Jupiter in Cancer, and then we've got Neptune and Saturn, as well as the North Node. It's a little out of order, but not really. I mean, you could really count it in, and I did when I did my New Moon in Libra video, and how this brings an added evolutionary perspective and also fate and karmic. So we can even include that in there. So all of these are creating this grand air trine, or I'm sorry, grand water trine. It'd be very different if it was a grand air trine. Much different. So when I see this trine, this is generally known as like an easy aspect, right? I will say that nobody goes to astrologers or anything for trines because they're easier for us to integrate, right? This is why I said in my previous videos that this will be a great time for emotional integration, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to just talk about the fact that when we have trines, trines hold potential, and we have to consciously direct that potential or our energy towards those things because there isn't an inherent friction like there is with difficult aspects. It can be easy for us to not even recognize what's actually happening because the energy is flowing through these trines. So we kind of have to add our own friction, like responsibility and accountability. So when I think about it from this perspective, it's like consciously sitting down and feeling our feelings, getting curious about the sensations in your body. I mentioned I have this Mapping the Shadows workshop, and we'll do a little bit of integration there because it's a huge part of what I do through the body somatic integration. But I have an entire framework on this called PACE, Pause, Alchemize, Connect, Embody. And this is what my Turning Triggers into Gold workshop was about, and that is still available, but we'll do a little bit of that in the Mapping the Shadows. I'm just not going to go super in depth into it. Or any other practice that you have that actually brings you into the body in a way that is in relationship to it, that allows you to feel the sensations. Because here's the thing with emotional integration, we have to be willing to sit in the feelings long enough for them to show us what's been hidden beneath the surface. Most of us live pretty surface lives, even if we're deep feelers. And this is not like a jab at you because this is just kind of how society has made us be, is that even when we're deep feelers, we're told that that's not okay because we need to like go, go, go. And what are you producing? So we just stuff that down, and emotions get stuck in the body. And the body speaks to us through sensation. So if we don't slow down to get really curious about sensations in our bodies, then illness happens, disease happens, right? It's no coincidence that the opposite of the earth signs or the earth houses are water houses. So what manifests in the material world is coming from the water and from the emotions. And as we know, the body keeps the score and all these things, right? That science has said as well, if that makes you believe it more, which is totally fine. Everybody has their own way of understanding truth and what feels good to them. This is a time where you're going to have to put in the effort to translate feeling into form. It might not have that same friction. Now, one thing I will say is that when you have Scorpio energy, yeah, I mean, that's not super comfortable generally. Thankfully, having Mercury and Mars, especially in Scorpio, and even the sun, it's uncomfortable. This is something I say, and I'm going to continue to say it, is that this work that I'm talking about, is it fun? I mean, I think it's a little fun, but is it comfortable? No, it's absolutely not. By definition, shadow work is uncomfortable to your conscious mind, to your ego. This is shattering the identity that you've built. And Mars and Mercury, I mean, Scorpio is the sign of shadow work. So it's not a fun process. But is it rewarding? Absolutely. Like, this to me is this coherence of emotional power that is waiting for us to see it and use it in a way that allows us to alchemize and transmute pain into true power. Because Mars is also in Scorpio, like, don't just feel it, express it, journal, dance, move. Make it into something physical. Even like recording a voice memo or a video for yourself only. And trines are also very stabilizing. And I'm talking about this because like I don't often talk about trines because, like I said, most people don't come to astrology because life is going super good. Like, it's important to talk about things when they're going good, right? We don't want to always talk about the hard things, but we generally, when things feel good, we generally like just keep on going. You know, one of the things that I struggle with in my life is that I will go through hell, literal hell, like multiple autoimmune disorders from the age of 18 to 21, severe chronic pain from the age of 24 to 33, 2014. Yeah, I was 23, right? Anyway, whatever. For 10 years. And that I remember after I healed my autoimmune illnesses at 21, the reason why I ended up getting my chronic pain again, I mean, this is just conjecture. I can't say for sure, but one of the reasons I know is that like slowly but surely my body was no longer in pain and I was able to live a normal life. And I just kind of forgot about the hell that I had been through. And things were feeling good. And so I didn't really take care of myself as much as I was when I was in pain or like freshly out of pain. So that's just to say that, it's the difficult aspects of life that we struggle with. Everything else, like when we're like, oh, this is a trine, this is beautiful, this is a blessing, blah, blah, blah. Yes. And it's so easy for us to pass by this opportunity that could really be healing. So I just think that's important to mention. So let's talk about a couple of gifts briefly, because I've kind of already mentioned them. So one of them is like emotional clarity and unity. As I mentioned, this harmonizes the unconscious, allowing suppressed emotions to come to the forefront and for us to be able to look at that without the chaos that generally comes about with this. This is asking us to have emotional maturity. And that's where that friction that I said, the accountability of like sitting ourselves down and feeling these feelings. Another gift of this would be creative union of the soul and psyche, which is kind of what I mentioned already, because this is invoking this right brain intelligence that can't be forced. It is nonlinear and it just can be allowed. In human design, we have these things called variables, and they can either face the right or left. You can have your mind be right or left. So these are people who are either right-brained or right-minded, which means that they take in information in a more nonlinear way. They give information in a nonlinear way. Hello, that's me. And then people who have it left are more logical and strategic. And this world is what we call a quad left world, which means that society has really gifted leftism in that way, logic and strategy. And we are moving into a right world in the upcoming years. There's a lot of changes happening in the world through astrology and human design, and I'm sure other systems as well, especially starting in 2027. So this allowing and this dissolving of boundaries between imagination and instinct, Mars, intellect, Mercury, and emotional intelligence, like all of these are kind of the boundaries are softening here, allowing us to be able to infuse all of those things together. Now, let's talk about some of the shadows inherent with this situation as well, okay? Because, yeah, it's not without shadows. And one of them is emotional complacency or even escapism, because Neptune has re entered Pisces as of the 22nd. And it has been in Aries since March 30th, of 2025. So March 30th, it moved into Aries. October 22nd, it's moving back into Pisces. And then it's going to stay in Pisces until February 14th, 2026, where it has that conjunction with Saturn in Aries at the 0-degree point. This brings back more of that ability or the complacency or staying in the escapist tendencies or emotional avoidance. And like I said, because this is a trine, it really might be easier for us to fall into this. Because as I mentioned, like with my chronic pain and all that stuff, is like when things are like flowing too easily, we tend to just like float. I'm thinking about it as like swimming. It's like, we'll just float in this, it's just flowing rather than like swimming when we're like trying to get to a certain space because there's friction or we need to get somewhere or the waves are too big and we're scared. So some of us may be just like floating. There is a sort of inertia that can follow this energy, especially, like I said, as Neptune has moved back into Pisces. And the fact that Neptune and Saturn have moved back to Pisces as well is like, it's pulling us back down. Something is not ready to yet be like brought out into the world in the way that it wants to when these two move together. Like it's a perfect time because it's like we're entering into like fall and winter and the darkening of the light and things really like dying essentially, especially with winter, so they can be reborn. And this just goes really well with the astrology as well. So yeah, that's a huge thing, a tendency to like bypass and not even realize what's being offered to us through these emotional gifts. The other one also I want to talk about specifically is Jupiter and Cancer being a placement of nostalgia. Cancer is the past, rules the past. It's very nostalgic, and we can, because of also this Neptune and Pisces, start romanticizing suffering. This is very common with Piscean placements in a lot of ways, or 12th house placements, a lot of ways, is like, yeah, we can stay stuck in these old emotional patterns and almost romanticize that because they bring comfort. And they tie us to a past that we're not ready to let go of yet. And actually, this is something that I think a lot of us, like, there's a grief here. There's a grieving. When I think about this energy, like Saturn and Neptune going back into Pisces as well, I do believe that this is a grieving process for us because we're about to step into something so new with the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries conjunction, February 14th, 2026. 2026 being a 1 numerological year, whereas this is a 9. As we are entering this, and then this, the seasons ending into the death of daylight, the shortest day, we're grieving something. We're grieving an old life. And that's painful. Pisces energy is final. And I just hope that we're being very compassionate with ourselves and other people, because yeah, it's a big grief, so that we can have a big rebirth at the end of this. I thought that it'd be cool to just look at what tarot cards rule the decans at the last decans of each water sign, because that's what we're seeing in this grand water trine. And so this is the book 36 Secrets. This is in my description. And also, I forgot to mention this, but I will be going through all of the different signs based on their element, because it's going to be in certain houses based on your element, and how this is going to be affecting you based on the signs that you have. And you can listen for your sun, moon, and rising as well. If you want to go a little bit deeper with me, this is going into the 3 tarot cards that rule the end of Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer. And that is the 4 of Cups for Cancer, the 7 of Cups for Scorpio, and the 10 of Cups for Pisces. Now, all of them are cups, of course, because these are water signs and cups are water. In Cancer, I think it's interesting because in here she talks about how in the 4 of Cups, this person under the tree looks kind of bored and dissatisfied. And she says that in the description of the hero's journey, this is the moment Joseph Campbell describes as the refusal of the call. Perhaps we must first understand what is not shown on the card, the thrill of the chase, i.e. the call itself. She later goes on to say that there's another way to interpret the downcast gaze of the 4 of Cups. We spoke of the refusal of the call, which was the way Joseph Campbell characterized the moment when the hero turns down his adventure. It might be the moment that we have to commit to a job or a marriage, or it might be a midlife crisis. In every case, the shadow of the unknown calls for attention. And failure to heed it leads, in time, to the erosion of the contentment we thought we were protecting. Ooh! In every case, the shadow of the unknown calls for attention, and failure to heed it leads, in time, to the erosion of the contentment we thought we were protecting. She goes on to say about how meaning is found, it's uncovered, it's not something that is thrust upon us. And she says to listen to those dissatisfied voices until they quiet down. They will tell you what is not leading you toward purpose and fulfillment. The tide is high, but you won't drown. This is why, why do we do the uncomfortable work of doing shadow work? Why? If it's not inherently fun. I mean, I think it's a little fun. I'm teaching a workshop on it, but it's not it's not a fun process. It's because there's a part of us that understands that if we do not heed the call to the journey of the underworld at some point in our lives, it will lead to the contentment that we thought we were protecting actually eroding because it was false. I have a lot of things I could say about this. Okay, so that's Cancer. So we get a little bit of understanding there. That's what Jupiter in Cancer is doing. And then we've got the Seven of Cups, which is the third decan of Scorpio, the last 10 degrees of Scorpio. Here she talks about how in alchemy, nigredo, or blackening, is the process wherein the outer shell of matter rots, burns, or decomposes, allowing an inner light to become visible. This is the ultimate message of death and Scorpio. The purpose of death is life. Every seed, every new life form takes root in the spent husk of its parent. Those who garden know this for a fact. The most potent fertilizers are the fermented wastes of other organic life forms. The Seven of Cups shows metabolism at the micro and macro level. Call it putrefaction or call it fertilization. They're two sides of the same coin. Deep in the mycelium, the liver of the earth transforms toxins into fruitful substrate. These are transactions between worlds, deals brokered between decay and fruition, illusions that nourish and destroy. And the Seven of Cups is oftentimes talked about a card of illusions or confusion because it's a Neptunian card in the sense that you're presented with a lot of options and you're not really sure what option to go with. But the illusions that, what was it? Nourish and destroy. So once again, it's like it's with that Four of Cups as well, where there's an erosion of a contentment, but in its place, something new arises, something powerful. So something is destroyed, but then eventually it nourishes us, and this is a cycle that we're in. And then the Ten of Cups, which is the last decan of Pisces. This is like a card that comes up when it's like the ultimate fulfillment, like something that we are very joyous about or celebrating. But one thing I love is that she says that when this card comes up, chances are you'll find something worth enjoying. Even if it's, you're worried about the meeting at 4 p.m., but right now on this street, I hear birdsong. I see the first tulip leaves thrusting their tips through the soil. I see a cloud shaped like a dolphin. What undeserved good fortune have I arrived to at this moment in this single human life? Even if you cannot rid yourself of the awareness that all perfection is fleeting, that only underscores the preciousness of the joy at hand, hold it lightly and let it pass. Tomorrow, we begin again. On my YouTube wall, I put a post. There's this poem by Robert Frost called Nothing Gold Can Stay. And in it, I dissected his chart a little bit. I don't know if you guys know, but I studied literature. I studied English literature, so I didn't study Robert Frost, but I studied him on my own a little bit. I looked at his chart and it was just interesting what I found and where I felt like this was speaking to, because that energy in that poem, I talked about how there's pain for the transient beauty, for the impermanence of nature, but also a reverence. And this is very Piscean in nature. And this is what, is indicated here is that this very moment that you're in, whether it's beautiful or painful or whatever, is fleeting. And that in itself is what makes it so magical, because our time here is limited. So in moments of beauty, can we just be present to that? And in moments of pain, can we just be present to that, knowing that on the other side of that might be the opposite at any given time. And actually, it's all simultaneously coexisting at all times. And so in all times of pain, there is beauty. In all times of beauty, there is pain, there is grief, there is love, there is grief. And truly, when it comes down to like how, people ask me all the time, like, how did you heal your chronic illness? This, my second time with the chronic pain, because it was different than the first time, and really just like transformed so much of my life, which is obviously still a process. Like I'm not, and I love that. I love the growth process. I love that it's not done. I don't want it to be done. I love this whole process, ups and downs and all of it. But the thing that when people say that, like one of the things that comes up for me is like the ability to be able to hold it all, capacity, right? Which happens through our body and our nervous systems, to be able to hold sensations in our bodies, to hold the feelings long enough for them to tell us what's going on. What is it that I need to see? What is beneath the surface? What is the call that you are asking me to dive into, the journey that I am being called to adventure upon, and how sometimes that journey is downward. It's not outward. The hero's journey and the heroine's journey are quite different. The heroine journey is the descent into the body. It's not the ascension. It's not tackling demons out there, but rather tackling the demons in here. Amazing. Thank you so much if you made it this far. I love that you guys enjoy these in-depth conversations as much as I do. So let's go through all of the different elements for sun, moon, and rising and see how this is showing up for you in your chart. So you can listen for whatever element you have in your chart. So for fire, sun, moon, and rising, so if you're Aries, Leo, Sag, sun, moon, rising, this trine is moving through your 4th, 8th, and 12th house. So these are all your water houses. This is where this trine is happening here. This is moving through your inner waters, home, intimacy, the unseen, the unconscious parts of the psyche, 12th house. It's inviting you to soften the need for control in your life and allowing the unconscious to reform itself, and to let emotional honesty reshape your sense of inner safety. These old defenses or survival mechanisms can arise so you can finally release them. It's like fire signs are very action oriented. This is yang, and the trine is happening in water. This is yin. It's asking you to allow stillness and vulnerability to replenish your fire, not put it out, but to make sure that it's not roaring out of control in directions that you don't even want to be moving. But because your instinct is to act, maybe you're just acting. And this is asking you to build emotional courage with these houses. The kind that builds real inner power so that you can direct your fire in a way that won't burn the whole world down, maybe your whole world down, and leave you wondering, like, what happened? Why did this happen again? Yeah, this is definitely specifically for you guys, really happening in the unconscious. There could be things coming up in dreams for you guys. Any way that you, or even in your home life, or in your deep inner emotional core, even ancestral patterns could be coming up because, the 12th house specifically, this is the collective unconscious. So a lot of things come through here that aren't ours to hold, but they just need to move through us. And sometimes we can take that kind of personally. Let me know how that resonates with you guys. If you'd like to join my Mapping the Shadows workshop that's happening on October 25th, I'll have that link down in the description. I'll see you guys next time. For my Earth, Sun, Moon, and Rising, so if you have Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn in your Sun, Moon, and Rising, this transit is happening in all of your relational houses. So in your 3rd, 7th, and 11th. So these are relational and communication waters for you. Conversations, 3rd house with people in your immediate environment, 7th house, relationships, 11th house, community and friends. And this is asking you to bring the emotional undertones, the emotional waters in your exchanges. Earth signs have a lot of value in efficiency and concreteness and form. And so sometimes we're having to learn how to let empathy run the show, where emotional fluency in those exchanges can foster a deeper sense of connection. And I think that's what this is really about with your relational houses, the 3rd, 7th, and 11th being highlighted here. And not only is this about showing that emotional fluency outwardly, but then also being able to receive letting people in on that emotional level as well. Sharing more of your inner world and the ways that your mind works, and allowing connection to occur and to refine your boundaries through empathy and compassion. This, when I think about earth signs, there's this emphasis on like stability in a way, right? It's like earth. And sometimes it's like the dirt's dry, it's like we need a little bit of mud because our feet are hurting, like walking on the hard ground. And this is asking you to like soften into mud. I don't know. Um, Yeah, it's asking you to just soften, whenever I go hiking, whenever the ground is like a little bit softer, it's so much nicer than to walk on like super hard ground. So just something for you to think about as this water trine is happening in the sky. If you'd like to uncover these sorts of patterns in your own chart, I have my workshop, Mapping the Shadows, happening on October 25th. I'll have the link in the description down below, and I'll see you guys next time. For air, sun, moon, rising. So if you have Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius in your sun, moon, and rising, this water trine is happening in your earth houses. So the 2, 6, and 10. These are your material and vocational or career work-oriented houses. Your values, your work, your sense of purpose, your achievements out in the material world. This really becomes more about like work and what purpose you're etching into the world through your public efforts. And this water trine is asking you to realign your ambitions with the emotions that actually, and the work that actually nourishes your soul. When I think about air placements, myself being a Gemini sun, there is a disconnection naturally to the feelings. Obviously, if you have a ton of water in your chart, that's going to be different. But in their pure archetypes, they are distant. This is wind, this is not, it's moving too fast to sit with the emotional undercurrents that are happening through the body. But emotional truth wants to merge with what you're creating out in the world right now. And if you're not taking the time to sit and listen to that, then you're missing out on what it is that you're here to authentically offer the world, not just what you know to be true or to be good, right? Like air signs can really place an emphasis on understanding and knowledge. And this is asking you to shift from doing those things that you know are right and doing them for recognition to doing them from a sense of devotion to something. And so finding like, what is it that I'm devoted to, that I want to create a sense of meaning and purpose? This kind of reminds me of the Four of Cups energy that we talked about in the Decan portion of this video that I explored with you guys. How can your career or daily life and your body, right? This is the 6th house after all. This is your health and illness, right? And I mentioned before and in this video that I had a lot of autoimmune stuff and chronic pain and stuff in the past. And a lot of this was because it was really hard for me to sit down and feel what I was feeling. I didn't want to do that. And so disease set into the body. This is the 6th house. So your career, your daily life, your health, how can these all become a way of an extension of your emotional truth rather than something separate from it? And like how can you feel into what you're building and let it flow from that space rather than trying to figure it out from the mind and what pieces go here, like it's like a puzzle, and you're like, okay, well, this goes here, and it's like maybe you're being asked to like put down the puzzle and like play. I don't know. I'm feeling very like metaphorical right now. Like, oh, I don't know. If it's coming across well, I can't say, but that's how I'm feeling. Maybe it's this water trine moving through me. Who knows? If you guys are interested in doing this sort of work with me and getting in touch with what lies beneath the surface, I have my Mapping the Shadows workshop happening October 25th. Link is in the description. I'll see you guys next time. For my water, sun, moon, and rising. So if you have Cancer, Scorpio, Aquarius, I'm sorry, what? Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces in your sun, moon, rising, or any other positions that you'd like to explore, this water trine's happening in your first, fifth, and ninth house. These are your dharmic houses. This is your purpose and who you are, not what you create, not your career, not your relationships, but rather who you are in this world. This water trine is saturating your identity, your creativity and self-expression, and even your beliefs and your worldview and your faith and optimism, your sense of meaning and purpose in the world. It's a time of this like profound emotional integration in those parts of your life. Emotions, purpose, your intuition, they're all asking to somehow come into unity. And you're going to have some accountability here, right? As I mentioned in the beginning part of this video, because trines can be easy for us to just like pass by. You could feel waves of like renewal because the first house is indicated here. And this could be literally like washing away your old self. Like, I just imagine you, like, this, I often do this actually in the shower. It's a really great, like, energetic clearing thing, is like just letting the water in the shower just take away anything that needs to be taken away, like, this is how I'm feeling. Like, you're literally, the self that you're outgrowing is being rinsed off of you if you allow it to happen. It's like, it's the unknown can be scary, but it's also where the magic happens, right? And with the fifth house here, like, express yourself, create from that emotional integration, create from that emotional depth that you have, not just something that would look good, or that you should create, or a way that you should express yourself, but rather where, like, how do you want to embody this emotional integration? Because this is happening in your first house. So these planets, regardless of what, water sign you are, part of this is happening in your first house, and the first house is the body. So this is embodiment, trusting that your sensitivity is the very thing, is the very compass toward your next expansion into your purpose, into answering that call that we talked about with the Four of Cups. So for you guys specifically, this is really touching on a lot of like your core essence. Water signs. I'm like, who am I talking to? Water signs. Let me know how this resonates. If you guys want to do this kind of work, you guys are so naturally attuned to this. The Mapping the Shadows workshop I'm doing on October 25th with this grand water trine happening in the sky. I'm so excited. I'll have the link in the description down below, and I'll see you guys next time.